my name's Kathy Roach. I'm from the Vital Statistics in Austin, the state office there. This is Bill Pyatt. He's from a funeral home in the area, and he's sort of an expert on TER, so we brought him along to answer any questions you might have. He's been using the system electronically since the beginning. When we first put it in there, he was part of the pilot program, so he is very knowledgeable on that subject. Now, what you have in front of you is you're going to have a folder, a red folder, and I'm going to sort of just explain what's in this. I put this together for physicians, and basically what it has in it is a lot of reference material for you. Later on you can look through it. I put a basic table of contents on one side, and I'm just sort of briefly going to show you what's in there. We have it's called a quick reference guide. Once you're in TER and you're using the system, the electronic registration system for registering death certificates, this is sort of an easy, quick reference that will walk you through the system and help you answer any questions you might have once you're in the system and using the system. So this is one of the things we've included. We've also put in a book from CDC. I just went ahead and tell them about what's in the folder. This is a book that CDC put together. The most important thing that you guys do is you do the cause of death information on the death certificate. And we do use that information for statistical purposes, and it's really helping us with a lot of different references and data material. So this is something that the CDC put out that's supposed to help people or physicians kind of give them options on how to do that cause of death portion of the death certificate so that we can get as much information and as detailed information as we can on the report for future use. We also have, this is a flyer on a new program that's just been launched. We decided that physicians as well as funeral home directors needed to have an online training resource so that they can go online anytime they want to and do the training. You can redo the training, you can do the training for the first time. It's similar to what we're doing here, but perhaps a little bit more information, and you can do it at any time you want to because it's an online service. It also has a search and reference section, so say you're on TER and you just have a quick question, something I haven't used it for a while, how do I get my password renewed or whatever. You can go in and ask those direct questions, and it will have an option for just answering questions, or you can do the whole linear program, which will be similar to what we're doing here today. Now, I've also included, we're going to talk about this a little bit in the presentation, but in order to sign up for TER, you can either do it online or you can download this form and fill this out and fax it in. And Bill and I were discussing it earlier, and we think perhaps a lot of facilities will have a local administrator who sort of does this for their physicians that are at that facility. If it is done in that way, then you are affiliated with that specific facility. And you can be affiliated with more than one facility. But if you as a physician wants to just pretty much be in charge of control your own usage of the TER, that way if you go into private practice and you switch facilities, you can carry this, the ability to get into the system, just as a physician. You can fill this out and fax this into to us at the office, and we will go ahead and start you on the process. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in the thing. So if you want to fill this out today and have me take it back to the office to expedite it for you, I can do that. If not, you can wait and fill it out and fax it to us later. Or again, you can do this online if you want to. So that's in there just to sort of show you what kind of information they need.
This requires an email, right?
Yes, sir, correct. It does.
I think that's the issue here at the VA. Is that there's apparently a firewall that it makes it difficult for VA visitors. We haven't,
yes,
done
and
it
that's
yet. We're going to talk about this tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we'll have to definitely work on is getting the security folks to, kind of look at it and take care of that. The other thing in the packet is this is the letter from Dr. Lakey. He's our doctor, our physician, who is the commissioner of the Department of State Health Services. And this letter just kind of explains how the House bill was presented and that the House bill did pass and that it is now a law, a requirement that all death certificates in the state of Texas be filed electronically. So this is sort of a fellow physician kind of just passing on the news about, hey guys, it's a reality. Also, I wanted to make sure that everybody understood, because this is sort of a misconception. It's not really a House bill anymore. It's actually a health and safety code. And this is the information, if you want to look up that health and safety code, I included this in for the physicians. It also applies to the funeral homes. And it's where you can find the information on the legal aspects, the law that says you have to file death certificates electronically. So I was hoping this would be helpful to you all if you want to read all the information that is in that section of the health and safety code. We do put out quarterly letters, from the Vital Statistics Department. And so these are newsletters. These can also be gotten off of our webpage. We have a website. It's called texasvsu.org, and I will reiterate that again. And you go in there. There's all kinds of reference materials. You can get hold of these letters, or you can have these actually sent to you if you want to be on their mailing list. And this talks about information regarding both TER as well as other vital statistics projects and things that are going on. So these are good to have. And the last thing in the packet, well, not actually the last thing, I have also the presentation that I'm going to be giving today. That's in this format, just two slides per page. But you also have one that was done here, which is great, is one that has the actual lines for putting these are the same presentations, but this one actually has space for you to put your notes and that sort of a thing, as well as another one that talks specifically about the signing up of the TER. So if you want to make additional notes on that, you can do that here. And last but not least in the packet is, I did want y'all to know, because a lot of physicians want to know what is in it for them really, and that's a valid question. You know, why go through all this trouble to electronically certify something, and how is it going to enhance our profession? And actually, the TER death certification system is being used to accumulate statistical data. We did use it with the H1N1 virus recently to sort of find out where it originated from, tracking where it was heading, what the impact it was having on various populations in the state of Texas. It was used during Hurricane Katrina to track the deaths that were related to that. And this is why that cause of death portion that you all fill out is so critical. The information in there helps us identify things like that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this also. But this kind of sort of tells you that you're going to get more out of this than just having to file electronically the death certificate. You're actually going to be able to get data off of it that will help you in the future, hopefully make medicine a little bit, more effective. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. The presentation is called Electronic Death Registration, and it says never sign a death certificate again, and that's sort of our little slogan. And what that actually means is that you're still going to be signing, but you're not going to be physically using your handwritten signature anymore. And we're going to talk a lot about that as we go through. And this will also address part of the security issue that some of the facilities have. So here we go. Let's go ahead and okay, first of all, let's talk about why we have to do this, basically. And this started out as a House Bill, 1739. I'm sorry, Michael, are you okay? Okay, good. And basically, the House Bill mandated that funeral homes, as well as medical certifiers, and you guys fall into that category, there's actually Justice of the Peace, medical examiners, and physicians that all fall under the medical certifiers category. So this was signed into effect on June 15th, 2007, and there was a year grace period, basically, but as of September 1, 2008, all death certificates in the state of Texas should be filed electronically. And again, it talks down the bottom here. This is the section that sort of applies to you guys. Section of the House and Safety Code 193.005 requires that medical certifiers also submit and certify electronically on the death certificate. So this is basically the driving force behind it. So Vital Statistics' job is to see that we do training and implement that particular law that was put into place by the legislators. Okay, here we go. Okay, we wanted to give you some facts on where we are with this. Basically, as of May of this year, we tracked about 1,325 funeral homes that are actually registered in TER out of 1,354. So the funeral homes are pretty much on board. Now, some of these, you may have one local administrator at a funeral home that has various funeral homes. So sometimes there'll be one person in TER for several facilities. So the numbers aren't always going to match. But basically, the majority of our funeral homes have resigned themselves to getting on the TER and doing their portion of the death certificate electronically. Now, as far as our physicians go, we have about 7,000, and this number is increasing on a regular basis, who are registered in the TER, and we have about 15,000 physicians in the state of Texas that should be there. So you guys, we have a learning curve there. We need to kind of jump in there and get all the physicians on TER if we can. And so that's what this is for, is to kind of get you guys started on that and get you signed up and ready to go. There's actually 3 groups that are involved in the death certificate process. The other one is the local registrars. And there's about 315 of those, and we've got about 315 on board, and there's about 400 of those. So we still have some local registrars that need to sign up. Basically,
local
20.
Registrars of the county.
Most of them are either district clerks or county clerks. Yeah, and they actually are designated or signed up as the local registrars, and they also need to be in the system.
In
yeah.
San Antonio, it's the Metropolitan Health District.
Okay.
Thank you, very good. Thank you, Bill, that's great. Okay, and then of course we have 13 medical examiners' offices, and all 13 of those are signed up. So they're definitely on board. Now here it says about 27% of all death certificates are fully electronic, and we're going to talk about fully electronic versus partially electronic and manual forms. That's actually up to about 40% now, so we have seen a huge leap. Of course, we're aiming for 100%, but at least we're heading in the right direction. So as we get all three of the components, all three of the people involved in the certificate on board, we will see that number increase. And this was just a little point we thought we'd make for you. We got a large grant from the Social Security Administration to implement the TER Death Electronic Program because it does help them significantly with getting the information to the Social Security Administration in a timely fashion. It helps with fraud and various other issues. So this system is tied into the Social Security Administration and automatically notifies them when an individual's death certificate is filed electronically. Bill, you have anything you want to add?
Just one point on the Social Security, let you know how important that is. The number one reason for amendments to death certificates in the state of Texas was a wrong Social Security number. This has eliminated that to almost zero because the first time the funeral home saves the record, the Social Security number with date of birth and name is sent to Social Security. The second time we save, we get a response back that either says it's passed or it's failed. And if it fails, it tells us where it fails. Either the number's not been issued or the date of birth is wrong. Even though it says it's failed, we can still file the certificate, but that's the flag we can take back to the family to make sure they've given us the correct information. Social Security admits their information may be wrong. So it doesn't stop us from filing, but it increases the accuracy tremendously. And it's really cut down on the number of amendments that have to be filed with the state.
That's great, and it simplifies the process, doesn't it? It gives you a more accurate birth certificate. A death certificate.
And we no longer have to file the statement of death by funeral director, type it up and mail it in. That does the notification instantaneously.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about here shortly. Okay, some of the advantages of using the system. First of all, it's an internet application, and as we know now, getting onto the internet is a much faster and more efficient system. You can get on there at any time, and so you can access it through the internet, and it's pretty much compatible with all of the systems. It accommodates all levels of participation. It makes it much easier since there are three folks involved in this. It's the funeral homes, the medical certifiers, as well as the local registrars. It allows you all to sort of intercommunicate and accommodate each other in a very timely fashion. It also initiates, as Bill was saying, the Social Security verification process has been increased greatly and works much more efficiently. It has a system of checks and crosses and edits that sort of help you reduce potential errors. At first it seems kind of cumbersome and sort of a lot of extra time, but that versus having to redo a death certificate or do an amendment because of a typo error or an inconsistency on the record is actually very helpful. And it also results in faster, more efficient, and a more accurate process. So these are the reasons why the system's in place, and hopefully that you guys will all benefit from some of these items.
One real quick deal on the accuracy and the timeliness. In the past, when we've had to type a death certificate, if there's been a misspelling, and I'll just use an example, we had one time someone put down a cardiac arrest, or that's what it was supposed to be, but it was spelled on the electronic certificate cardiac arrest. I can't change that because that's on the medical certifier field, but I saw that it was mistyped. I was able to call the physician. They can decertify, make the change, and recertify. In the old days, we would have had to have typed up a brand new certificate, taken another day to run it out to the office, taken another day to get it back. So it's made it better for both the doctors as well as the funeral homes, but ultimately to the family to get that done in a more timely manner.
That's a good point, Bill, and I did mean to mention, since you all get this, you can't always change what the other individual involved in the process can do, but you can see what they put in there, and so you can kind of help each other. The funeral homes can help the medical certifiers and vice versa, so if you see errors or incongruencies, then you can deal with them before the entire certificate's electronically filed with the state. Okay, so basically, what about my signature? This has been kind of one of the issues, is that Most physicians, sure, and most funeral home directors are used to physically signing, and that's a very important part. That's because you are a professional, that means that you are accountable for the information and that you have documented and you have become responsible for that death certificate because of your signature. Well, basically, this system has the same setup except that it's done electronically. So what you're going to do is both funeral homes and directors will have a username and identification. They will have a password. You will also have, in the case of the medical certifiers and the funeral home directors, a PIN. And the PIN is a very specialized individual, as you know most PINs are, specific to you. And that PIN is unique to you, and that is your signature. So when you put the PIN number in there, you are basically signing the death certificate. And there's a special process that has to be gone through, and only people with PIN numbers can do that portion of the death certificate. So the PIN number does have to be kept confidential. Each person has their own individual one. It can be changed if you forget it. You need to feel like you need to change it out for best practices type of a thing. But basically, the PIN holds the same legal standing as your written signature traditionally used to hold. So it's basically being substituted for your physical signature. Okay, this is just a little bit, we put this in here for you, and it does work with most computers, but I thought it would be nice for you to have the specifications that a computer will have to have in order for you to access TER. And I'm not really a computer guru, so basically this is one you can just read up on and just check with your computer and see that it has all those specifications. Most computers would probably, if you've bought a computer in the last 3 to 5 years, it should basically meet this criteria. So basically, we put this in there for you to sort of review at a later date if you need to be sure. Okay, how can I participate? And I'm assuming that, is anyone here signed up for TER? No, I wouldn't think that you have been. Okay, so this is going to really apply to you guys. Basically, you get online, and down here we have the web page. It's well, this is one way to get in. You can actually go to texasvsu.org if you want to, and that'll get you in, or more specifically to TEDR, texasvsu.org. And once you get on there, there will be a way for you to get in and get one of these sheets that you can fill out to get signed up for TER. And then you will take that. That request can either be done electronically, sent in online, or you can fax the request to TER Death. And they'll also send you updates. This website is very good for any new trainings, any new information that's come out, any clarification, reviews of information, as well as ways to get into the TER system if you have questions or concerns at a later date. So we're going to go in a little bit more on how to participate. Okay, this is what the page will look like when you first bring it up. And there's all these different options. So basically, you guys would go into register for death. For TER death registration online. So you can go in there. It's also got all the information on like any new legislative things that have come up, anything that relates to that sort of a thing. So you would click on that. I apologize for walking in front of you, but and this is what will come up. This is the user agreement that you will get. It's the one that's in your packet. And there's a way to either fill it out online and send it that way, or fill it out and fax it in. And it has various categories in there. It does talk about the physician's information. Then if you have a local administrator, there's administrator information. If you are a physician that's going to take care of the whole process yourself, then you would be your own local administrator. So you can be both. Or if you're affiliated with a specific facility that has a local administrator that wants to do that portion for you, they can do that also. So anyway, it's got various information you fill in. You do need an email address and some other things. And once that's filled in, you will be receiving a startup email. Okay, so the state of Texas will go ahead and send you a startup email, and it's basically going to have these components to it. You're going to have a welcome, the computer specifications, a way to get a hold of resources and website information. It'll tell you how to get into there. There will be a service level agreement. It's a pretty standard agreement, just kind of says that you're going to answer honestly and that sort of a thing. Confidential and non-disclosure agreement, because this is a secure site, and it is got some parts to it that do involve confidentiality. You will get your user ID, your password. In the case of medical certifiers and funeral home directors, you will get a PIN number. And then they give you two methods in which you can contact we have a help desk. So once you're in the system, if you have any issues with using TER Death, or you have issues that come up as you use it, the best way to get a hold of the people that can help you with that is to go through this help desk. And so you have either of these choices. They take you to the same place. You just try to simplify a little bit by making it texasvsu.org, and that will produce an email for you, and you send your request or your needs into via that email, and they will respond back to you or take care of the issue. I do want to let you know that when you do that, it's good to put a lot of information in your subject title, because they do have folders and categories that they place the emails in, and it helps them discern and it helps them respond more quickly if they have a really good idea. Like if you've been on the system for a year and a half and you hadn't done a death certificate and now you need to, and you forgot your password or you forgot your PIN number, put that kind of information in. You know, I'm a physician on the TER, and I've lost my password, I've forgotten my password, I need to have that reset, and they will respond to that automatically. There's also some bad password guidance documentation on there, and there's a remote access securities policy document. So these are the things that you will see in the startup email, and it will sort of walk you through what you need to do with that. And here's an example of what the email looks like. It's got a lot of information. You kind of need to look for this email, because once you've sent in your registration, your application to register for it, you should get this within a week or so at the longest, I believe. But sometimes these end up going into a spam folder or are sometimes difficult to see. And you don't want to miss them, because they will have all of your temporary PIN and your password and that sort of thing on there. So be conscious that it should be coming to you. A lot of people will take that web address and put it in their mailbox or as part of their email so that it gets accepted easily and doesn't get put into an automatic spam folder or deleted in some way accidentally. But this is basically what it'll look like. Like I say, it's got the definition of what you need on your computer in order to run it. It's got all that information and some information down here. So when you get that, that'll start you off into the system. Okay, now basically this is sort of what the setup looks like. You guys are down here, so you have the option of having a local administrator, which is what most facilities do have. And the local administrator manages the medical certifiers, which are the physicians, as well as some staff members who, you can still have staff members fill out the TER tabs for the most part. Now, of course, the physician is the only one that can pin it or sign the death certificate, and it would behoove you to review the information that's been put in by a staff member, because you will be ultimately held responsible for that information. But that's something that you're doing now anyway. You know, basically you've got to be sure that the information that's been put in is accurate, but the information can actually be put into the system by a staff member. And your local administrator would be the person who kind of coordinates who is a medical certifier and who is a staff member who's going to be inputting data, and see that the medical certifiers do have PIN numbers and that sort of a thing. And then if you're working for a facility, it's all going through a local administrator. The local administrator will send everything to the vital statistics office. So this is the way it would work. So you do want to remember also, if you have a local administrator and these functions down here change, or the personnel changes, they need to keep their system updated. Because once you're in the system and if you continue to be in there, even if you no longer work for that facility, you will have the ability to continue to use the TER through that facility if they don't make those sort of corrections.
So this doesn't go through the funeral home at all then? They access the same the database that comes out that's generated by the facility?
Right, what you will see is generally the death certificate is generated or initiated by the funeral home.
Yeah.
And when you look at the screen, it will show you there's 8 tabs. The first 5 are the funeral home, the last 3 are the physician. You can look at mine, I can look at yours, but we can't touch each other's.
Okay.
Those 8 screens make one death certificate.
Right.
Okay.
But I see I think you're also asking, shouldn't there be a funeral home right here, maybe in this diagram?
With the old paper
Right.
ones,
Yeah.
actually in the VA we initiated them, right?
Right, that's
We gave them
correct.
to you guys.
That's
but
correct.
In the outside world, you guys initiated and bring them to
Right,
us.
and what we would probably do now, and it'll of course it's going to be up to the VA and how they want to do that.
Right.
But I'm going to use the medical examiner's office for example. The way the system is set up, the physician or the funeral home, either one can initiate the document.
Right.
When the medical examiner went on, they said, well, we'll initiate all of ours. Well, they found out pretty quick within the first week that the name that was for the deceased that was gotten by the medical investigator was not necessarily the legal name that needs to be on the certificate. So they would do theirs. When we would come in, of course, we needed to be the legal name. They would have to go in, decertify, change the name, recertify. In about 8 days, they realized, no, the funeral home's going to start the record.
Okay.
Then what we do is we just say, we assign it to Dr. Frost. He's the chief medical examiner. When they get it, then he will then change the physician to whichever one of their deputy MEs is going to sign that or verify that record. And that worked out easier that way, to let the funeral home start it, because now when you open it, almost all of your medical tab number 1 is going to be pre-populated. Names and dates and places of death and time of death and all that is all going to be pre-populated for you. Makes it a lot easier.
So what's happening, say for instance, say, you know, Methodist Hospital, patient dies there, the funeral home initiates that death certificate.
Right.
And then that's assigned to whoever.
To the doctor.
Who makes that decision? Somebody at Methodist or?
When we make that transfer, when the death occurs, we're asked who's the attending physician that will sign the certificate. Most funeral homes, I can't speak for all, but I know for ours specifically, when we're given that doctor's information, before we start that certificate, we'll call that doctor's office to verify that they are in fact going to be certified. Right. Or that we send it to them and they say, well, we don't know who this patient is. And that happens on occasion. The only hospitals really that generate their own DCs anymore is VA, University, Wilford Hall, and Brooke Army Medical Center. Any other death in a hospital, it's handled strictly between funeral home and physician. The hospital's out of it, basically.
The hospital's out of it completely, so
Yeah.
they don't have that local.
Yeah, you don't
That's
necessarily
right.
have to have that. And you are right, there's a funeral home right in there, because they actually, I guess the funeral homes actually send it to the state.
We're lateral. Funeral home's lateral
Yeah.
on that.
And you're right, we're going to kind of hopefully show the cycle here where it's initiated by the funeral home, goes to the medical certifier, is returned to the funeral home. They verify their portion after you've certified your portion, and then it goes on, I believe, right to, does it go to the local?
No, it goes to Austin.
Local registrar and then to the
Austin,
Austin,
ours
and then
goes
to
to
the
Austin, then to the local, and that's
registrar.
Austin.
Okay, so we're going to kind of go through that process, hopefully. Okay, let's get started. Absolutely. Okay, here we go. This is what you will get. A notification will be sent to you electronically. So here's the email. So once the death certificate is started by the funeral home, so what happens is you guys are signed into this system so that you're now in the system, so that the funeral home can locate you from a drop-down list electronically of potential medical certifiers that are in the TER system. So once the funeral home has initiated and started the death certificate, they're going to put a lot of demographic information in, person's name and that sort of a thing. You will receive an email from the funeral home that gives you specific information on that particular case, and that will kick it into your electronic queue where you can find that. It will be given a unique EDR number, and that is specific to each individual death certificate. So that's a good way to identify if you have several cases, you have several deaths, and you have to find which one it is that they're referring to. That is one of the ways to do it, and probably one of the best ways to do it.
And on that queue, you can only see your death certificates. You can't see any other death certificate. And in Bexar County, the only people that can see all death certificates are the medical examiner and the local registrar.
Gotcha. So yeah, and in order to get it in your queue, it has to be assigned to you specifically by the funeral home. So verifying that you're the right physician is a good idea. So basically, you have
the
to.
funeral home can reassign it.
Absolutely.
You know, for instance,
If we and we had one just the other day. This doctor was going to sign, then he decided no. I've talked with Dr. So and so, and she's going to sign it. We can go in and do a relinquish. It frees that doctor. We reassign the certifier, and it goes to the other doctor.
So once you've gotten your email saying that you now have a death certificate that needs to be addressed and needs to be medically certified, you go ahead and get into the TER system. And this kind of shows you how to get in there. You can either go to an icon or you can type this in and press the go icon. So then once you're in the system, okay, it's going to bring you back to this portal page, and you're going to go to what's called Thin Client Application. So, and this is a very secure, this is a secure system, a very secure page, and so the thin clients are all the people who are the physicians and the funeral homes and all that. So you click on that, and that gets you into the system. Now this is where you're going to log in. First, you're going to enter your username. You're going to enter your password. And you're going to click login. Then down here, you're going to select your location and click OK. Now this is if you're a physician that works at several locations, when you first apply for TER, you're going to put in the locations that you work at, and you'll have a drop-down list to go ahead and select the one at which that death has occurred and relates to. If you just have an office or you have your physician's office, you can just have that in there. But you select the location that applies, then you click OK, and this will
So
get you.
if the death occurred in a hospital, but your practice location is an office, then it's your office.
That's right, yeah, this has nothing to do with place of death. This is
okay.
your practice.
Location.
Yeah, this is.
I got you. Thank you, Bill. Yeah. So basically, but I guess if you were seeing that physician seeing that client or that patient at a certain, then you would put in that if you're affiliated with that hospital.
Perfect example is working with hospice. We know that there's doctors who have private practice, but they're also the medical director of a hospice. So they'll have two. Are they signing as their private practice or are they signing as their hospice? Because that's what's going to be put in, typed in under their signature on the death certificate.
Right. But if somebody has patients in 50 nursing homes in the county, they just use their office.
They just use their office. That's
Their
right.
home
Yeah,
office.
you just have your one location.
That's a good idea. So I guess it just depends on how you're set up. Okay, so basically it's going to bring you up to this screen. You're going to get into them. You're going to be entering the medical data. So you need to get to the main menu for medical data. So you're going to go up here to functions. They're going to give you the choice of medical data entry. You just go ahead and click on that. This will get you into the system. Okay, and this is what the page is going to look like when you first come in. It's a general information page, and it's a medical data entry screen. Now, you're going to put information in this, so let's retrieve the record. Yeah, it's going to show you how to pull up the record, because your queue may have more than one death record in it. So you're basically going to search. You can either go to Find and look for and search for the record there. Basically, what will happen is you can select it from the record here. You can look at you can either search or look for a new record. Let's go ahead and see what options they're going to give us. Okay, so basically, this is the search record screen. So you want to go ahead and search. Now, you can put the EDR number in here, and it should bring up only one record, the record for that specific EDR number. Or you can put other information in by a combination of items. You can put first and last name. The more information you put in, the tighter the search will be, depending on how many death certificates you have in your queue and how similar they are in name and that sort of thing. So once you put information in here, it'll pull up for you a list. Let's see if it's going to show us that. Okay, well, again, we're talking about you can enter the EDR number. That's the best way to do it because that will get you the one and only specific record that you're looking for.
The EDR number comes in an email that you
That's
right,
that's on that email, and that stands for electronic death record.
Yeah, and that's actually assigned by the state through the TER system. So it'll be already registered at that number will be specific to the state.
And don't put all the leading zeros in there.
Yeah. Oh, very good point, Bill. Thank you very much.
Because there's like 6 leading zeros and then your 6 numbers. Just do the 6 numbers.
I guess we're anticipating a lot of deaths, but yeah, good point, Bill. That'll save a ton of time just right there. Okay, so basically, once you've got your information in this page, you're going to get a drop-down list of death records that are in your queue that match that specific information. Hopefully, you'll only have the one that you want.
But there should be, each EDR number is unique though, right?
Right, so yeah, if you use that, you will only have
You'll
one.
only have one.
Yeah, but if you don't remember your EDR number and say you put in Tom Jones, because you can't remember your EDR number.
You say, well,
Yeah.
I know it's Mr. Jones, so you just put in Jones. Well, it's going to search all the Joneses in the state. It'll only pick those in your queue to reflect.
Right. But yeah, if you use the EDR number, you're done. Yeah, that's a good point. But if you don't remember it, you need to get into it another way. Yeah, it's either or. So yeah, but yeah, it's best to just go ahead and remember that EDR number if you can. Okay, and again, I've already told you all about these things. Sorry, guys. Click and select that record. Okay, now we can't see it up here. This will be displayed. I guess we're going to see a little drop-down list up there. But you guys get the idea, right? So here we go. Okay, now what it's going to do is there's also a filter. Sorry about that. Okay. There's also a way of filtering. If you have a large quantity of records and they're at different phases, like some are just ready to be medically certified, all the information's in there, various things. But you can look at all. This is a filtering system. You can look at all unresolved records, which are all the records that are in your queue that you haven't passed on back to the funeral home. Or you can look at ones that have medical data that's not complete, so you still have information to put in there. or ones that are not medically certified, which means they're all ready to go, but the physician has not pinned or signed. And so you can break it down in that way also if you want to find, and of course, basically this kind of can also show you where you are with the records. You can look at the records that are most complete, need a little bit of information, or need everything. So anyway, you can use that filtering option. That's just another opportunity to locate records if you need to.
We find at the funeral home this is a lot better than doing search. Because if you click on all unresolved and then click on the next box over, which is where the picture is, you'll get a list of we get a list of every death certificate that needs something done to it. And then we just pick the name. That way you're not going through a search screen. I mean, you've got your whole list right there. It's a wonderful tool.
Yeah, and that way, and so there's just different, you've got many options, and find the one that works best for you. That's right, and it also depends on how many death certificates you're using, and of course in a funeral home's case, you're probably optimum, so your best practices are probably the best ones to go with. Okay.
And even a super certified hospice medical directors, most going to have 5 or 6.
Yeah, Dr. Justo Cisneros, who used to be with Vitas, he's with another hospice. He was the first doctor I signed up and helped Debbie Brennan, his assistant, get everything set up. And he was doing in the course of a week 25. But he found the system to be wonderful. And I even helped set up his computer, so his notebook, so that it was easy for him to get in and out.
So you have an advocate if you ever need assistance. Bill is here to help you, and we
And
are
I'll tell
too,
you that
but
at the end. I'll tell you how I can be of assistance to you.
he's the man. Anyway, this will be the drop-down list of records that you have. Now they are listed from by date of death. So the one at the top of the list will be the one that's been in the queue the longest. And so that's kind of a helpful hint also, because you have a certain amount of, you have 5 days to do the medical certification and get it back to a maximum of 5 days to get it back to the funeral home. And so you want to be sure that the ones at the top of the list are taken care of first, because they're the ones that have been in the system the longest. So that's cool. Oh, no problem. There we go. Close.
We went the other direction.
These guys, the earliest date of death is at the top, and so this will help you be sure that you get your records out in a timely fashion. Okay, so now, medical record. This is what Bill was talking about. This shows you sort of the layout. There's 5 demographic tabs, and those are done by the funeral homes. Yay! So the funeral homes do most of the filling out of information. And one of the enhancements we have done with TER is now, in the past, the physicians have had to reduplicate the information that the funeral home has already put in and double-checked with the checks and balances. So now that will pre-populate, so you will no longer have to put in names and information about the addresses and those sort of things. So now, the record will do that on its own. This is the general information page. And again, this will show the selected records. You can kind of check and be sure that the information is correct for the record that you're looking at. Okay, the demographic information has been put in by the funeral home, and we just talked about that. They're going to be pre-populated on Medical Tab 1. So I know we're getting close to being done, so we're going to kind of speed things up here a little bit.
The best thing that the doctors liked about this new change that just came about is that the funeral home is now allowed to give a time of death.
Yes, that's right.
Where even though that's, and the doctor, you can still change it if you want, but so many doctors that are in private practice, if death occurs at a hospital in the middle of the night, they weren't there, they didn't pronounce, they don't know the time, and so they're always calling us going, well, I don't know what the time of death is, but we could never put it in. That's something that's just changed in the last 30 days.
Yeah, which was really good.
But it still gives you the ability that if you want to change it, you can.
Yeah, that's a good point. We are trying to do enhancements as we go along that will help the system be more usable. Now, one thing I want to talk about, you're going to start with Medical Tab 1, you're going to do 2 and 3. I did want to explain to you a little bit about the visual queuing. Basically, if the box is yellow, that means that information has not been put in and needs to be put in, or should be addressed. If the boxes are blue or gray, that's information that's already been pre-populated or will pre-populate once information's been put in, or is a field that has been disabled. So basically, as you can see here, once the place of death was selected, all of this information on the place of death, the addresses and whatnot, were pre-populated. The name will automatically show up in there. The physician type and the certifier is all been pre-populated. done by the funeral home. So by the time you guys get to that page, you do want to verify and check that you are the medical certifier listed and that you are the one who should be listed. And so just check the information. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you can get through. We have a tab type setup. So what you're going to do is you're going to tab through each of the spots. And if you need to leave information empty, it's going to ask you, do you intend to come back and fill it in later? If you answer, no, I don't intend to come back and fill it in later, there's nothing in there. Like sometimes people will not have a middle name, that sort of a thing, or other information that the physicians might need to fill out. So then you just answer no, and it clears it and makes it a resolved field. If you answer yes, I intend to come back and fill it in, which may be the case, it'll put it in your unresolved queue. So you will not be able to send it back to the back to the funeral home until you've answered all the questions that need to be answered, or at least addressed each of the boxes. So we're going to go ahead and start with the medical tab 1. Let's see if it's going to give us any more information. Okay, so basically this has the actual and presumed death, the place of death, the certifier who's been designated, and basic information on the decedent. Also, you'll notice here's the EDR number up here, which has been assigned. Also has places for the time of death and the type of death. Let's see if they're going to give us a little bit more on that. Okay, I do have some soft checks. This is what some of the checks and balances. Okay, this is what I was telling you about. The medical field, these are optional. So even though they're going to ask you, do you want to put something in there, you don't necessarily have to. However, you still have to tab through them. You're going to get a box that looks like this. It'll say, you left this box blank. Did you? If you leave it blank, you'll mean none. Do you need to complete the item later? Press no if you don't need to complete it later. And that'll allow you to continue on. You can still continue on, but it won't let you release it or certify it until you've taken care of all those issues. Okay, we already talked about that. That's good. I know you guys are on a schedule. Okay, so if there's no middle name, you tab through to the next field. And as you tab through, it'll keep you from missing any of the fields that you need. I'm a person who kind of likes to jump around and select what I want to fill out, and that's not a good way to do it, because sometimes you will miss a small yellow box and you'll have to go back later and deal with it. So
if you have a yellow box, does it send you another email?
No.
You have not completed it?
No, it just won't let you. It just won't let you certify the record.
So let's say you've had a hectic day. You start filling it out.
Gee, you have those.
You don't know. You take care of your children. You take care of your spouse. You go on vacation. It's still got to be filled out within so many days. How do we make sure? I mean, I don't have time to go check the whole other website.
Oh no, you're not going to have to do that. Go ahead, Bill.
Here's what you should do. If you're going to certify that record, you're going to go through it, because this really isn't going to take you more than 5 to 10 minutes. Believe it or not, to do all this, it'll take you 5 to 10 minutes. And if you go to certify the record and you've left something blank that's a yellow field, you're going to stop and it's going to say you need to correct it, and then there's a check and balance that you can click, and it'll tell you exactly which box you left blank that you need to fill out or resolve.
This is all part of the same process. That's right, and you can do it all at one time. What will happen is once you've filled out all 3 tabs, and it says, do you want to medically certify now? It will not allow you to medical certify if there's any blanks that you need to fill in. So what will happen is when you go to hit medical certify, I believe, it'll come up and say, it's an unresolved record. Here's what you're missing. It'll have a list of where you've got to go back and complete. So you can do that immediately and then go back to the certification and try to certify. I'll go through these 3 tabs so we can get to that portion of it a little bit quicker. Here we go, guys.
I'm sorry I arrived late. Was the VA looking at doing this in a certain period of time from now?
We don't. We're meeting with them tomorrow.
Yeah. Actually, just so that you know, this was mandated by the legislature to be, all death certificates are supposed to be electronically certified as of September 1, 2008. So in order to be in compliance, you need to get onto the TER right now would be good. And at least get yourself signed up and get ready to go. So basically, Emmys and JPs, if your information is different from the demographic, you can add and edit. Okay, so this is just, Emmys and JPs have a little bit more ability to get in, like Bill was saying, get into the system and change some things, even on the demographic report, that cannot be changed by the physicians. They have sort of a special deal that they do. Okay, so the demographic must match. Okay, so this is one of the checks that you can get where the demographic information has to match. Let's keep on going here. Let's see what we got here. Okay. So that box will appear to indicate the information is different. This is mostly stuff that the medical certifiers, the medical certifiers will have to indicate the date of death type. Okay, now this is still true, right? Even though you guys can put in the time of death. Okay, there's choices for the date of death type. Okay, so you're actually going to have the date over here, but then you have choices. Actual is most often used by physicians.
That's what you all will use.
Yeah,
is
for the
actual.
most part. Presumed and estimated has a little bit more length to it. It can still be used. And found generally indicates bones or remains that have been indicated. Bill, you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Generally presumed, estimated, and found as a JP or medical examiner function, because if you're an attending physician, somebody on staff is going to know that's the actual time of death. So I've not seen a physician that signed one that's used anything other than actual.
Yeah, so as a rule, that would be the one that you use. And even if you didn't actually see the person expire, whoever was there who can give you the actual time and date can do that.
These things where, we get called by the police and, so-and-so was found dead in his apartment and you were the last physician to see him. You will need to sign the death certificate, we decided.
And if you're going to sign, but you'll know because, but now this is date of death, not time of death.
Okay.
So
yeah, right.
what they'll say is you're going to know that that's the actual date of death because you were called and told by the police or the medical examiner that's when this person was found. The time of death probably is always for you all, if it's a home death, will be actual because someone's going to have made the pronouncement, either EMS or something of that nature, or
So,
if there's a hospice nurse.
Who's found?
Well, found is going to be,
Yeah.
again, that's a JP or medical examiner. If a body's been found out in the field, that's a skeletal remains.
Yeah.
This is the day we found it. We don't know what day they died.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and this may be a good point, a time to bring up the discernment between when a medical certifier is a physician and when they're a medical examiner or a JP. Physicians sign natural cause death certificates. So if it was an accident or there's some suspicion about the death, if they found bones or they found a body in an apartment building and they don't know the cause of death, it may or may not be natural. If there's going to be an inquest or any kind of research done on why the person died, it's going to go to the medical examiner or the justice of the peace.
Well, sort of, what happens frequently is that, the ones I get called on, I think there may have been somebody in the house with them when they died, but sometimes there's not.
Sure.
And the police go out and they look around and, it's pretty obvious it's just
It's
an
a
86-year-old guy whose heart quit working. So they call the ME's office and they said, no, let the PCP certify it. We don't want to get involved. So we get the call, are you willing to do the death certificate?
Right.
That's great. Yeah, and that does happen a lot too. The ME will, if they feel it is not a case for them, they will ask it to be relinquished and sent to a physician for.
Because the medical
natural
investigator at the ME is going to talk to the police officer to describe the scene.
Right.
And there's where their determination is going to be. Now, if you come back and say, no, I'm not going to sign, then it will become a medical examiner's case.
I know we're kind of short on time, guys. I don't want to keep you over, so I'm going to sort of run through these things. They're just sort of showing you that you're going to have a lot of drop-down lists where they're going to select who the medical certifier is. The funeral home generally does this, and so your name should already be in there. But if it does need to go to someone other than you, there are choices of other certifiers.
It's like the medical examiner's office. We always send it to Dr. Frost, but they can drop down and pick whatever deputy is going to actually do that.
Yeah, so this is talking about that. You can, if you're unable to sign a death certificate, it can be reassigned to another physician.
So if you just say, I'm not going to do this, then it gets kicked back to
Right.
somebody, and you don't have to get on the phone.
the funeral home.
Talk to somebody and say, hey, I'm not.
Yeah, and also sometimes, like, if you're working with a group, if you're a co-op of physicians, and that was your patient, but your coworker knows enough about it, and you're on vacation, they want to sign it, then it can be reassigned to that physician instead. And each one will have
But
their own
only by
PIN number.
the funeral home.
I believe
No,
that's
no. In this case, you can do that.
But what if you don't have access? If you're really on vacation, you're out of town or out of state.
Then what we can do is we
You can do it,
we can relinquish it and reassign it. Wouldn't be a problem.
Or if you know ahead, you can go ahead and say, okay, I'm not going to be here, so anybody that dies, just go ahead and.
Or if it was a practice, say South Texas Oncology and Hematology, their person that goes in that fills out the form for the doctor, they can reassign it.
Oh, the administrator.
The administrator can reassign it.
Okay, and so time of death also has that same group of criteria that you can pick from. Again, you would most often pick actual.
You're going to use actual
Yeah.
for a physician.
Quick question. I'm
Sure.
sorry, on the
Oh, no,
vacation
please,
part.
we like questions, so just trying to keep
I go
them-
on vacation for, a month because, I won the lottery. Theoretically.
And you're making me.
Yeah. And let's say I take all my colleagues with me, or I am in a private practice where I do not have colleagues. I'm not checking my email because maybe I'm going to India. Am I going to get dinged by somebody for not signing that death certificate within those 5 to 10 days?
You could.
See, and then what's the backup fail-safe plan in that situation?
Well, now one thing that they can do, the funeral home director sends you the email, and he doesn't hear back from you in a timely fashion. He can elect to select another medical certifier. Is that
But again, you have to remember, if the funeral home is doing just cause, just duty, they should be calling before they assign that certificate to someone to make sure that that physician is going to sign it. And if we have your phone number and you don't answer the phone, then we're going to know. Or if we have your cell phone number and it rings in India, well, if you can get on the internet in India, you can sign it. And I've had doctors, administrators tell me, if Dr. So-and-so is going to be in Aspen, Colorado, there's no way in hell I'm going to call them to get on a computer to sign a death certificate while they're on vacation. Although that's why one of the reasons this system was made, because that can be done. But they're saying, I'm not going to call, I'm not going to get chewed out.
When you're rafting, you don't know.
So anyway, but again, here's the deal. If you've left and your patient is in the hospital, someone knows you're not here.
But
And someone's got to be covering for
How is that
you.
funeral home gonna know?
When we make the removal from the hospital, because we're going to ask, who's the attending physician? And they're going to say, well, it's so-and-so, but we know she's out of town, so this is the doctor that's covering for her.
on an individual basis? This is medical tab 2. This is where the manner of death, if an autopsy is performed, and the answer is yes, then the physician may not complete the medical certification of this death
If
certificate.
there's any autopsy, you can't complete it at all?
I think
No,
that is.
you can.
Oh,
Yeah,
can you?
right,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, 'cause-
Oh, okay.
Because-
So
because
it has to be
the
natural.
the next
Just if it's
box
natural death,
says-
the manner of death. Okay, gotcha. Here we go.
Because you
Sorry
can
about that,
order an
guys.
autopsy and then you
Right.
either say yes or no, the
Whether
results
you
were
do the
bad.
results or not when you put
Right.
it.
Gotcha. Okay. So as long as you put natural
Its
in the manner of death, I
its manner
apologize
of
for
death
that,
has to
so.
be natural for
Right.
you all to sign.
Right. So if you have accident in there or something like that, then it's a non-natural
Then it
death and it has to be sent over. Okay. Did you ask a question about tobacco? Okay. This again is showing you the note that says if it is an accident or something other than natural, then you have to designate it to let the funeral home know, and they'll redesignate it to a medical examiner or a justice of the peace. Okay, that's the message section. Okay, now by responding no to was the death a result of an injury, that will disable the rest of these questions here.
And for you all, that
Okay.
should always be no.
Should always be no.
Can I bring up one more thing?
Yeah,
on
sure,
that
please,
page?
please do. Yeah.
If female pregnant, the magic number is 74. If it's a woman, if they are 73 or younger, the answer should be not within the last year. If they're 74 or older, it's
down
not
here.
applicable.
70.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
Why
Yeah,
did
they
come
gave
up
him
with
that big
magic?
margin.
Don't ask me, but when I was doing this
It must be an average or something.
with South Texas Oncology, one of the nurses elbowed the other one and said, "There's still hope for you."
I bet they went to Ripley's Believe It or Not or one of those and got a number.
But
Maybe
74
they had
is
46.
74 is the magic number.
Okay, now this is an example of one of the cross checks that the system will put in for you. So if you had marked manner of death as accident, and then you said that there was not a result of an injury, it's going to ask you that they don't seem to coincide with each other, because usually an accident would be a death as a result of an injury. So then you would have to go back in and change one of the two. So
That
to
comes
resolve
up-
it, you either change this to natural or change the answer to.
That comes up with hip fractures.
That's correct.
If you decide to
That's
put
right.
hip fracture on the cause of death, it becomes an
It
ME.
becomes an ME because it's
Oh.
trauma.
And we do want you to be as accurate as you can with those, so that's kind of, I see where that kind of causes an issue.
Well, it's good for epidemiology, though.
Mm-hmm.
You have to prove that a lot of people die of hip
That's
fractures,
right.
and we'll get more
Good deal.
research on hip
Yeah,
fractures.
and where we get in trouble is if our administrator misses that, and the doctor signs it and puts hip fracture, and then we're waiting for the letter from the ME's office to allow cremation. They put the brakes on real quick and they say that's our case.
Yeah. Well, the system does help a lot with that sort of data and that information that can be passed on and used as a resource for making decisions down the road. Okay, so.
Quick question on that, too.
Sure.
My elderly debilitated patient has a fall above his head. Does that count as head trauma?
Well, now we're talking about the cause of death, or?
Well, I mean, he was
Are
already
you-
dying up to this
Are
point.
you
but
putting that down as a contributing cause?
No.
That's what and this year, actually, that was a good question because it brings us right into medical tab 3. And this is where we're going to do a little hype thing for you guys. But this is where you put your cause of death. Basically, if the cause of death is pending, you would put a check there because sometimes you do need to complete the death certificate and you don't know the cause of death yet. And then under line A, you would write pending, and then you would go ahead and medically certify it. You have to come back and amend that. Is that right, Bill? So that it would have the exact information. But if it's a time issue and you know you're not going to get it done in a time allotted, then you can do that. Basically, we're going to talk about what goes into these sections. There's a part 1 and a 2, and we are looking for sort of a so part 1. This is where the cause of death has not yet been determined. Okay, we talked about this. Check that. We're going to speed it up a little bit. It's pending in line A. Okay. But now, if the cause of death is known, you want to enter the information in the lines A and D as appropriate, tabbing from field to field until complete. You are going to put an onset of death or a time. This can be immediate, 1 week, 2 weeks, whatever your best medical opinion is. You want to start with the primary cause of death, and then you want to use the other lines for contributing cause of death if there are any. And again, the more information you give us, the better we have statistical data that can be used to enhance the medical profession later on down the road. Okay, be sure the information is correct. Okay, certain wording. You guys know how to word things, and basically we're trying to stay away from real basic, old age, that kind of thing. Put stuff in there that will mean something to other physicians, and so then when we accumulate the data, it's useful to physicians that way. So you have all your statements here, and you're going to go on down and do a list of, and usually it's in progression, the primary cause of death and then things that may have attributed to it will go on down. Additional assistance. Okay, yeah, there are some things we're going to go over real quickly that are places where you can, okay, now, if you left the cause of death part 2, other significant conditions contributing blank, they're going to ask you, do you want to? Then you got to say you want to complete that later. This is a place where you can put information like you were talking about, where there are things that are happening to the decedent, and you want to make note of them, but they were not necessarily related to the cause of death. A copy of an old manual one. We use it for statistical purposes, data, and research. So those are the 2 key things that we're accumulating this information. By having an electronic system, it allows us to do that, to compile information in a very timely fashion, and not just for this county, but all over the entire state, which can be very helpful. And why we need you guys, okay, the data, actually you guys are the professionals, you put the information in for us, so in order for it to be accurate and detailed and uniform, it has to come from you guys. You know best what type of wording and what kind of things will collate together and will make sense to another physician. So a lot of it is pertinent to current health issues. We can use the data for that. There's mortality statistics, health issues for geographic, demographic, age, gender, ethnic. All those things can be collated through the TER electronic system based on the demographic information given as well as the medical. It helps with bleeding causes of death, infant mortality rates, and trends in health issues on mortality. Okay, guys, the research. We want to access the general health, assess the general health population, what's happening to them on a regular basis. We use the information off of the death certificate. Comparison of medical issues from county to county or on a state level. It also helps us indicate areas where medical research can do the greatest impact in reducing mortality. And that can also lead to allocating funding for those purposes if you have some documentation that shows you why things are happening in certain areas. This is an example of the cause of death, and we kind of we'll go through this a little quickly. Okay, complications and causes of deaths, other significant underlying. So the first, line A was the immediate cause, right there, and they put pneumonia in there. And then the approximate date is, you're just saying 1 week. But again, it's your best medical conclusion. The rest is stuff that you can just see in the presentation. And
If you would like my card, and this is not
yeah.
a put, this
no,
is not
he's
a,
local. Plus, he knows more than I do.
this is not a put down of DSHS, but if you send in that help TER, it may be 4, 5, or 6 days for you to get a
I thought it was
response.
24 hours. No,
Sorry,
don't tell
it's
the
not
truth.
anymore.
No.
Call me and I can help walk you through. I don't charge.
Yeah.
It does not, and it does not have to be a death certificate from our funeral home.
How about people who don't have Texas licenses, can they?
If,
Because that's what, you know.
Let's say,
I
let's
see.
say you're
Just-
doing a
just
death
our-
certificate from Mission Park, but you have a question, you're not getting
Right,
walked
but
through,
you're a
you can still
licensed
feel free to call me.
Yeah,
I don't need to know any,
But
I don't
you're-
need
but
to
you're
know
not
who it
Texas
is that
certified,
died.
basically.
Yeah,
I can walk you
Any
through the
physician who has a
process.
license can go to
In
that.
any state?
Yeah, in
Okay.
any state,
And
yeah.
then trainees use their institutional license?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we sure appreciate you guys. We appreciate the questions. This is the kind of stuff we need to do.
And
And
these
we
are the resources.
do want to answer any of your concerns. I'm sorry we didn't quite get finished. I don't think there was
There's
a lot
not
more, but I
really
know.
anything else.
Yeah, thank you very much. A lot of stuff. We probably need to clean it up a little bit so we don't take so long. But thank you so much. I hope it was helpful.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, please,
I won't be here tomorrow.
yeah. It's hard, but yeah, the physicians just focus on getting on and getting going, because you know the 5 days is an issue. It's a bigger issue that you're not on the system. So you know, and we you know
Appreciate it.
we'll help people as best we can. And I hate to say they got so much on their
Because
plate already. I hate
the
to see them
diagnosis
stressed out
was
over
not- was different.
you know doing it right.
Yeah, getting a
You gotta
rep.
start by just doing it.
Because
You really need to
Yeah.
take me on vacation.
Yes, yeah, that's we only just.
Yeah.